telling you, Radical, again, more proof. I don't know how long you're going to go and just watch this whole world crash and stay in Fukushima denial. So this is out in the LA Times. I saw this a few days ago, and I'm like, I'm not even going to comment on this bullshit. So, sea lions mysteriously dying of an epic cancer. Oh yeah, very real. 10 years. So look, you can go in denial, but this epically in earnest started in 2012, 13, 14. I was working up down the coast in 2014 and 15, working this hard when this went crazy. I mean, I had seals and sea lions coming right up to me. I saw them eating rocks. And nobody was reporting this. I was. Nobody was even talking about the cancer in them. You know, they were talking, it was a starvation event from hell, but then as I was working up the coast, I was walking the entire coast, I was dying of cancer. They were dying of cancer, I was dying of cancer. And so, I met a kid up at Ragged Cliffs that's really turned me on, and he's like, we've rescued 1,500 of them. Then I run into Joe in 2014, he's the famous photographer. Him and his sons go out there on the rowboats on the islands in SoCal. They keep track of the sea lions and the seals. He drove all the way to Avila. I remember when I did my Blue Hearts on Valentine's Day at Diablo. He drove all the way up there, and that's when the herd of seals come right up to me. You know, he took those great photographs. So, working independently with different people, and then I started popping into the private foundations that were saving the seals and the sea lions, and that's when people started telling me, Kevin, they're testing positive for AML leukemia. And I had AML leukemia at the same time. So this is important. We have a famous one here at the zoo, Pogo Zoo in Salt Lake City. Really famous. He was blinded in an accident, saved, rescued. I believe it was 2013, out of nowhere, AML leukemia, boom. You know, I mean, and that's what it does. It kills you fast. And so, you can go in denial all you want on this. And you can keep staying in denial. So Joe is part of that group out there, and he says they wanted to put double orange tags on the rescued ones, these private. You know, NOAA would only let them put one. Now, I was walking the coast 2014, 15, you know, dying, sleeping in a sleeping bag, blah, blah, blah. I would watch NOAA come in the middle of the night, 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and they would come in like a black ops operation and clean up the Fukushima debris off the beaches and put up these detections. They had these weather balloons. I'd video them. They'd take them down. Of course, you know, that was in the day when it wasn't like just click, 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 load a video. It was very difficult. And a lot of times I didn't even have Wi-Fi. I mean, I'm out there in the middle of nowhere. So Joe said the next year they went out with their cameras like they always do and was videoing me. He says they found one with the orange tag. One that had survived. Well, that fits the same mantra as me. 44 of us in the bone marrow transplant. I'm the only one that come out. One. By the way, they named it Blanch. I wonder if Blanch is still alive. So this comes out of that Times and tries to blame it on herpes. Indeed, now stay with me on the correlation on herpes, contagious viruses, AIDS. When you get diagnosed with HIV, or excuse me, AML leukemia, almost always it comes back the marker. And I had a doctor tell me that I had AIDS, HIV, and I'm like, which happens a lot. So this is important because Marshall Jensen was in the room next to me in 2011 and 2012. He's the most famous leukemia case. You know, all three of our famous cases right there. He and I got to be very good friends. We had to make the decision on the bone marrow transplant the same day. You know, I was too sick. I didn't have one. You know, AML, de novo non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Same time as me. He didn't work. He was a little child. So he got into the MD Anderson news. There was only took 25 people into this another bone marrow transplant. Didn't work. So this is a crazy story. So there was a 2012-13, there was a research PhD at George Washington University in St. Louis. Again, another toxic radiated hellhole. He was experimenting with this genome from AIDS and to fight AML leukemia. He gets it. You can't make this shit up. He got it. Injected himself. But anyway, it's experimental. It made international headlines, front page of the New York Times, blah, blah, blah. So there's a new fast track through. Marshall Jensen is the first one. in the world that gets in. He goes to Philadelphia for the treatment. I'm in New York. I believe this is in 2013 at the Aaron Swartz trial. You know, maybe it was a different trip there, 2014. But anyway, I take a flight, and I'm very sick, into Philadelphia. And, you know, just a connecting flight. Who do I see? Marshall Jensen's people. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing here? I didn't even know. And he says, don't you know? I said, no. KSL, all the media made this giant, big grandstand about it. First person to get the HIV, AIDS injection to fight AML leukemia. He's doing great, blah, 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 blah. So Nancy was in the room next to me, the famous triathlete. He's on this room. They died the same day. Now, his wife tells me, because she was head of the flight night, she's a gem. This little boy's a gem. She says it's working now. But this story, he says right in it, this is alarming. It's scary, you think? And it's herpes. It's bull fucking shit. It's Fukushima. You can stay in denial all the way, but you have to take all this data and all this work. By the way, you want to talk science? Tracy Hall, the synthetic diamond. You know, he was my 8th grade history teacher at Walquist Junior High. That's the year I drew the yearbook and the freaking phone book. He was always fascinated with me and my twin sister, you know, scientist, history. He was a nice guy. I liked him. Good teacher. So, you know, I mentored under the great Dr. Winters here in zoology in the honors program in the day. God, he would laugh his ass off at these idiots. Their studies comes to the conclusion and then they just quantum leap. How long? I'm telling you. You take all this other work in symphony, the new starfish studies out saying exactly what Kevin Blanch has said for one. First you hypothesize the knowledge. I'm exactly 100% right. 311. Went into the bone marrow transplant on 11/11/11, Kevin. 3 of them. I did. You can't make it up. What a story. It's an incredible story. Unbelievable. For whom the bell tolls. 1, 11, 2, 11, 3, 11. I'll start to heaven. It'll be 10 years. So, anyway, this study, it's going to get a lot of attention because, of course, it's in the LA Times. It's been out kicking around for a few days. I've been reading it and watching it. It's bullshit how they headline it. But, see, it's just like anything else. They headline it. Ignore the headlines. Read through the study. The study, he says, alarming, mystified, baffled, stumped, freaking. What was the new one we came up with today on the starfish study in Washington? I mean, there was a new word. I'll tag it in there when I reread it. My work goes on and on and on and on, and it's being verified. As I said back in those days, millions of times, they will verify everything Kevin Blanch said. They laughed at me. They laughed at me on the sills. They laughed at me on the sea lions. They laughed at me on the starfish. They laughed at me on the salmon. I said, wait, salmon had record returns. Record returns till 2011. Then the steelhead started acute radical collapse. I talked to a zoology professor right here, and I'm like, we had a conversation about the mink. I says, well, the mink are full of COVID, mutual exclusive of each other in Denmark, in Utah, in Oregon. And then we talked about the feed, and we talked about, virus moving from animal to person. We had a long conversation, and then we started talking about, I got him finally on the Fukushima dynamic, and we started talking about this acute collapse. And I says, well, come on. As a zoologist, as any scientist, when we see this radical collapse, and I started talking salmon numbers, the salmon go to sea for 5 years of the Chinook. They were record return, record escapement, record return, off a cliff. The seal data, the starfish data, all in symphony with each other. You take all this data, you put it together, you obviously can see something radical. We call that in science, we call that an outline. Okay, which mystified, baffled, stumped, perplexed, bewildered, that's not science. Coincidence? All coincidences, that's not science. That's not science. So all this in symphony happening at once, it's obviously an outlier. So we have to start looking at 2011, 2012. That's where we got to look. That's when the starfish collapsed. That's when all this collapsed. And even the new starfish data saying, you know, we're alarmed. Oh, yeah. Shocking. Shocked. That's it. Shocked, the new one. He says it right here. Shocked. That's the new one. Shocked. You take all this data, you put it into symphony together. You have to identify. There's something happened. It was an outline. It's obvious because these populations were huge and all started to collapse in 2011, 2012. So, and that's unarguable. My work has proved that that's when it happened. So we have to start looking for something crazy that happened in 2011. Something out of the freaking mean. You run regression, smoke will come out of your freaking computer. And it'll identify you right to 2011, 2012. So what happened? A meteor hit the Earth? I told him that. No. I said, we have 800 Exxon Valdez. We have some kind of radical freaking poison. Well, I don't know. And I looked right at him. I says, triple meltdowns at Fukushima, Japan. Mox fuel blown all over to hell. And he's like, he says, you're all over it, Kevin. And I says, yeah, and you get paid and I don't. You have money and I don't. You have research freaking money and I don't. I mean, it's unbelievable. So here we go again. More fucking proof. More proof of this historic work of capitalism. This is the greatest PhD in human history. That's why there's no views. So if you read it, headline herpes. Okay, fuck you. It's not herpes. Which again, we can talk about how that can be confusing. You know, contagious freaking leukemia in shellfish, herpes in shellfish. It can be very confusing. You know, you go to research. You go to Marshall Denton's case. Like I said, I was in the room next to him. I mean, most famous case. It's an unbelievable story. You know, he was a gem, by the way. And so this work, as I'm working up and down the coast, the starfish and these things, I'm talking to people, and they're all testing positive for AML leukemia. We know. When I was in the bone marrow transplant center, you fill out a packet about this deep from the United States Department of Energy. You fill one out. I feel it's all exposure. We know. Now, airplane mechanics, they die. Oh yeah, benzene in the fuel. Railroaders. Oh yeah, benzene in the fuel. Benzene, absolutely. Nuclear fallout. So, were they just overexposed to benzene? Well, there's that component, but again, it comes down to an outliner because this is an acute collapse. The salmon work proves this because we count all the salmon. You go to the freaking salmon numbers on the Columbia, record returns in 2013, 14, 11, 10, 12, getting bigger on record escapement. They go to sea for 5 years. And I kept telling everybody, wait till 2016. Fuck, you seen these numbers? You're talking from 2015 till 2020. Fuck, you're talking 95% just verge of fucking extinction. All the steelhead, you know, they started collapsing on Q 2011, 20. It's unarguable proof. Now you can say, well, my gargle, shut the fuck up on that shit. How are you going to test a fucking water and open body water and open dead animal with a guy? You're not. The marker is the leukemia. The marker is the cancer because we know that's what it causes and we know it's an acute death. I mean, the average lifespan with AML, look at Young Diamond, Screech. He died in 3 weeks. That's the way it works. I went from 175 to 130 pounds in 3. I got down to 119. The picture I'll post on this tag. I'm walking on the coast. That's sleeping in a sleeping bag. That's 2014 or 15. That's in Carmel Cove. You know, when this was all happening. You know, and in an acute, radical fashion, that everybody forgets about that death. We have had more animals, life, trees collapse in the past 10 years, acutely, than the previous 2 million insects. Look at the butterfly numbers acutely collapsed in the last thing. Look at, I mean, again, how much proof? How much proof? You know, I said it for years. 5, 6, 7 years ago, they'll come out and tell you exactly what Kevin Blanch is telling you now. Everybody laughed at me. The frogs have been boiled in ice. I guarantee it's Fukushima. The energy off Fukushima, 3 full blown out meltdowns pushed in, freaking spent fuel all over the place, MOX fuel blown all to hell, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, blown to hell into the biosphere. You're telling me there's no byproduct for full blown out. Then why are we so afraid of nuclear meltdowns? Why are we so afraid of them? We're afraid of them until they happen, then it's see no nuclear evil, speak no nuclear, hear no nuclear evil. And then attack Kevin Blanch, just cover up Kevin Blanch. And I've done all this work while I'm in critical condition. I never had a transplant. What a freaking story. What a story. story. Rachel Carson on Balco on chemo, and I'm alive. I mean, it's incredible. Here it is, right here. They're mammals. Their DNA matches humans. You know, same with the well collapse. I mean, I go on and on and on, and it's all in symphony. The evidence is overwhelming. First you hypothesize knowledge, then you do where's the field work? I showed you mine. You know, these numbers acutely collapse on the sills and the sea lions. Post Fukushima, it's all post Fukushima. Acute radical freaking. I mean, it's obvious the scar. I would just say this: the nuclear energy emperor has no fucking clothes. You know, stay tuned. By the way, I come from Copenhagen. I did those videos right at Hans Christian Andersen's. It's at 11:11. We go. There it goes. 3:11. The clock struck midnight. I did those videos of Hans Christian Andersen's statue. By the way, my grandfather's name, my great-grandfather from northern Denmark, Christian Andersen Mikkelsen. My blanch name's adopted. Like all us freaking. Something rotten in the New Denmark. 3:11. Can't make it. And I didn't know the clock was going there. I mean, improv. I mean, I run off the intuitive mind. That's what good science does, Einstein. The nuclear energy emperor has no fucking clothes. My little grandsons, oh, they'll know. They know. They know. By the way, speaking of Weber State, Damian Lillard, that night I did the play-by-play. That was March 10th, exactly the moment when it happened here. Hit by 20 points at halftime. They lost. I see he made 2 incredible buzzer beaters the other night, but, you know, me oh my, way past Nobel Prizes. I mean, I live in poverty. I mean, it's incredible in story. There it goes. There we are. 3:11. Stand tuned.